somehow birthed in this cycle of despair. Without end. The dead reach for us through the veil of purgation.
All right.
Touch us. No one.
I think everything's looking good in terms of video and audio. So, let's get moving.
Separated.
So,
Even
today we're doing something around taking something from Adobe Firefly, generated through Adobe's AI, and then bringing it into other applications. So we're gonna bring it into Animate, and then we're gonna open that up inside of Photoshop, or maybe we'll open it in Photoshop first. We need to separate the subject from the background. We need to reconstruct the background, and then we need to bring it in to Animate as two different layers. We'll use warped assets, warped objects to create a mesh on the subject, and we'll have it animate a little bit, right? You can see here, and I generated this based on one of the prompts that are just available inside of Firefly's collection here. So this was something, just a pre-made prompt, just based on this sort of thing, where you can just go ahead and get ideas. Like if you want a baby on a motorcycle, right? You can go ahead and start with something. It's almost like a preset. But what I want to do is take what I've created and I want to animate it inside of Adobe Animate. So let's open up Photoshop first. There it is. And if I can find my Finder. This has my downloads, and I've got, well, open on the wrong screen, but this image right here that I downloaded from Firefly. And we're just gonna drag that right into Photoshop and open it up. All right, cool. So, what do we got? We got this hand with a plant, which is the subject, and the entire thing is the subject, right? It's not just the hand, it's not just the plant, it's not the soil, it's the whole thing. And then we have the background element. You can see right now it's a flattened image, it's a JPEG, so it's a flattened bitmap image. So what we're going to do, the first thing I'll try to do is to select it with the object selection tool and see if it identifies the subject for us. Yeah, it's doing okay. Not too bad, I guess. We can also choose select subject if that doesn't work out. So the thing with the object selection tool, like most of the time, it's gonna look for multiple objects, right? And I think there are some options up here. Yeah, show all objects. Set additional options. But what we're going to do instead, we're going to try some of these from the contextual toolbar. So select subject, let's see what that does. It's all right. Let's deselect. And let's see what remove background will do for us. Okay, I mean, they all have their issues, you know? So let's do a Command Z and get out of there. What I want to do is duplicate this layer because I want to preserve the background in one case. So for the background layer, I do want to remove background. So I'm gonna turn off the visibility of this duplicated layer, the background copy, which I'm gonna rename to subject. And for my background layer, I'm gonna select that, and actually I will perform a remove background on here. And oh gosh. And what I want to do is actually invert this. So let's not do a remove background, let's do a select subject. It's gonna make it easier. That will create our outline here. And then I can go ahead and choose select inverse. That will select the inverse. And then if I choose to manually add a mask to this, there we go, right? So I've got my background here, but of course we've got big holes taken out of it. We need to fix that up, right? So what I'm gonna do, first of all, and I'm gonna do this through Firefly, through the generative AI. So let's go ahead and right-click on this layer, and I want to make sure, oops, wrong. Right-click on this portion of the layer. Hello. And apply layer mask. That's gonna take the layer mask and the pixels and squish them together, right? So at this point, I can go ahead and say like, hey, let's not use this. Let's use our lasso tool and just try to get an outline roughly around the pieces that are transparent. We're gonna use this as a guide for the generative AI to go through and just fill in these holes for us. And of course you could do this in other ways, right? We could do it with the clone stamp tool. We could do it with the patch tool. There's lots of different things. But now that I've got that selected, if I choose generative fill from the contextual toolbar down here, if we leave this prompt area empty, we can click generate, and it should just fill it in based on the rest of the pixels that it detects in the image, which is, I think, one of the advantages of using something like Photoshop to do stuff like this using the AI, because you're not just generating the whole thing, right? You're not generating an entire image just based off of a text prompt. You're actually generating it based off of existing pixels, which is really nice. Hey, Reverb Mike, how are you today? Hope your new year is going well. Yeah, this one's fine, right? These different variants here, it works. We'll go with that. And at this point, we can actually remove this guy. So wait a minute, let me see here. So this guy right here, we're gonna remove him, just select him and hit the trash bin. And then we've got our background layer here, and you can do this. Oh, that's not gonna work, is it, Joseph? Let's do our Command or Control Z, because it's using, right? It's using the portions of this. It's gotta mask itself, right? Based on that. So what we wanna do is really just squish both of these two guys together. So let's choose both those layers, right click, and we wanna rasterize, well, we wanna flatten, merge layers. Hello, merge selected layers. There we go. Now we've got one layer that is the background layer. Yee, there we go. Ooh. All right. And then we have our subject. And of course our subject layer, right, is just everything. It's the original it's the copy of the original that I made, right? So let's go ahead and do a remove background on that layer. And if I hide the background layer, we can kind of see what's going on here, right? And just go and do, I'm just gonna do a quick select just based on the pixel data here. So let's go into our quick select and make that a bit smaller. Nope. No. And you know, I mean, a lot of this stuff does not have to be perfect, right? So now that we've got that, we need to fill that in with black. We've got black selected already. There's a couple ways to do it, right? We could use our paint bucket. We could use our brush tool. I've got a weird brush selected right now, but of course I can change that to like a hard round and just brush in over that. Oops. So I need to select my mask first. There we go. Brush in over that. Do the same kind of thing for these other bits and pieces. Select our pixel bits and pieces here. Stop. Deselect. So deselect, Command or Control D will deselect very easily for you. Any selections that you have made. Bracket keys, always useful. And you could use, see, this is too much. Stop. Change this to my brush tool. And I did it again. I need to select my mask before I do that. Deselect. You know, this part of the process can be somewhat painful. Actually, I mean, for what we're doing in Animate, we're going to create a mesh out of this. We don't necessarily need to be super concerned about all these different little things, you know? But here we go. Brush. Nope. Hey, guy. Didn't mean to do that. Hit Control F instead of Control D right there. I'm trying to think, is this my first stream of the new year? It might be. I think it is. I think this is my first stream of the new year. Anyhow, there we go. So we've got our subject, and then back here we got our background. And they're both good, you know? They're both what they are. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, you could save this as a PSD, and then pull in the PSD into Adobe Animate. But you can also just simply export these individually. So I'm going to do that, I think. I'm going to choose File, Export, Quick Export as a PNG. And I'm going to call this one BG for background. And of course, if you export as a PNG file, right, you are going to retain that transparency. And this will be subject.ping. Perfect. All right, thank you, Photoshop. You can go away now. And animate. So for animate, I want to create a new file. And inside of here, I mean, you can go to a lot of different things. You probably, if you don't use animate very much and you open it up, you'll probably be in this first category of character animation, which is fine. Maybe I'll use that because it's easy to get to. But, yeah. So the width and the height, don't worry about it. We're gonna use the width and the height of the imported image. I'm gonna just hit create right here. One thing that is very important, make sure your platform type is ActionScript 3.0 because the tools that I'm gonna be using inside of here are only compatible with ActionScript 3.0, which is the native file type inside of Animate, right? So create. And I don't need my actions panel anymore. That was for a recording for Adobe Press a few weeks ago. Yeah, so I got my thing here. It's 640 by 480. The stage background is white, but again, that doesn't really matter either. The frames per second is 30. That's fine. It's gonna create nice smooth motion for us. But I am gonna wanna save this. So File, Save As. And from here, I can choose to save it as an FLA file. I'm just gonna save it to my documents as warped. So we're gonna warp the guy. All right. So now that I got that going, got a document, let's go through. I'm gonna import my background first by just dragging it onto my stage from the file system browser. And you can see, right? This is the stage outline here. The stage is way smaller than my content. That's fine. Because if we look in our properties panel here, you can see the object is like 2,300 pixels wide. The stage, if we go to our document panel here, is 640 wide. So there's a big difference. However, we do have this little button right here called Match Contents. And if I press that, and then we go ahead and fit in window from our zoom menu up above, we can see it's filled in the entire thing for us very nicely. Almost very nicely. We've got a weird little thing down there. I'm not sure why. Let's go. And you can, of course, change this, right? So maybe if this is too big, right? Let's say it's too large. So 2304 by 1792. It's a weird number. I don't like weird numbers. Let's go with something a little more manageable, like 1,000. Let's do 1280 by 720, right? 720. There we go. And then we can just take our object here, make sure that our lock width and height values are good. Although it probably doesn't matter that much for this because it's just an abstract background. We could probably deform it a bit and it wouldn't hurt anything. And you can see, right, it is sort of spilling off of the stage. Here's where the stage ends. But you can always, during authoring, turn on this, clip content outside the stage, and then that will just disappear. You won't be bothered by it as you're working through and doing this stuff, right? Okay, so there's that. I'm gonna fit in window once again. We have our background. So what else do I have here? I've got my layers. Let's go ahead and rename this to BG and lock it. When you lock a layer inside of Animate, it's gonna make sure that you don't introduce anything weird to it. So if I don't mean to bring anything in, you know, it's not going to happen. It's gonna force me to create a new layer for any new content that I bring in, because inside of Animate, if you wanna animate something, especially with tweens, it's a really good idea to keep everything on its own layer. So I'm gonna click the new layer button up here and rename this to subject or plant or whatever. Let's have a plant here. And with that layer selected, of course, I can drag in my subject.png, which by default, just like the background, is gonna be far too large for us. So if that's too large, that's okay, because we kind of can visualize this. If I go out 25%, I turn off that clipping, right? We can move it around, we can resize it. I'm gonna go to my free transform tool and just use those transform handles to get it to a certain place, right? All right, that's looking good. It's an appropriate size. It's positioned the way I want it. So let's go ahead and start animating this thing. What I'm gonna need to do is to convert this into a warped object. So inside your tools panel, you're gonna find this little push pin icon. This is your asset warp tool. And if I click on this, and then I click on my selected bitmap image here, and you can use this on vectors as well. I just want to animate the plant. So I'm gonna put the root pin right here. Okay, animate, be picky about things. So animate doesn't like the size of the image from Photoshop. What are you gonna do? Let's hit OK. There we go. So you can see what's happened here is that Animate has converted this bitmap image into a warped bitmap, and it's created a mesh around it. So this mesh, you're able to distort all sorts of things. And if we look in our object here, and you can see when I move around, right, I start getting this weird like preview of a bone. If we look on our object properties for our warped bitmap, we can see that, you can visualize the mesh or not. You can toggle that on and off. There's envelope you can toggle on and off, which has to do with the outline of the mesh. It works a lot like Illustrator, where you can adjust the path through vector points, anchor points, and anchor handles and things. Yeah, I want to disable it. Envelope things. I'm not going to use that. Create bones. I mean, that's a choice that you can make, whether you want to actually create bones or you just want to create pins. There are different kind of workflows, right? If you just have pins, you move the pins around and the mesh warps in accordance with the pins. It's great for things like cloth, like foliage, just kind of like ruffling in the wind. But if you have actual structures like we do here, right? We've got actual plant fronds, for lack of a better word. We probably do want to create bones. And you've got a choice. You can create hard bones, you can create soft bones, or flexy bones. And they all behave a bit differently. Hard bones, if you have a hard bone and you like move stuff together from two different points, the ends of the bones, it will compress the image and squish it down. If you use soft bones, instead of compressing the image, it will squish it to the side. So it's good for like ropes and, things that flutter, stuff like that. Flexi bones are interesting. This is the newest type of bone that's been added inside of Animate. And flexi bones can be used in a really neat way with, you have control over the flexi bone in the path via pretty much anchor point handles. So just like, again, in Illustrator, if you're working with vectors. So I think I'm gonna use that. That gives me a good amount of control over things. So let's go ahead. We've got our initial pin right here. I'm gonna zoom in a bit, actually. 200% looks... Yeah, that's okay. So from here, I've got this bone selected. You can tell, or this pin selected. You can tell because it has a red dot in the middle. Then I'm gonna go up somewhere around here and click and drag out some handles until it aligns with the spine of this particular leaf. There we go. And you can see this bone has a curvature to it that's defined by these handles that you pull out. Just like when you're working with vector paths, right? Hello, Danilo. I hope I said your name correctly. Then I'm gonna go out to the tip, do the same thing, pull those out. And of course you can go in and make adjustments. So I want this to align to our thing here. You can make adjustments to that. Okay, so oops, I made a... There we go, got rid of that. I made an extra pin there, I didn't mean to do that. So for the others, right, we need to create additional bones. And by the way, it's a good idea to save often when you're using this particular tool because, well, it sometimes crashes. So be careful. Let's do it again. That's fine. So it's taking me into rig mode, rig edit mode. I must have inadvertently adjusted the rig, which I didn't mean to do. There we go. So creating another point, we need to select where we want that sort of branch to come out of. So I'm selecting the root joint once again. And it's really hard to see. Yeah, so this whole cluster here, just because the pixels we're touching, has become a single bone. So I'm gonna go over here and do this one first. And this one, I suppose, I mean, we can make it just a bone that goes out to like right here. And then if we choose this for the root for this kind of set of items here, right? And remember, I'm always selecting where I want the bone to branch off of every time I'm doing this. There we go. Now, when you're inside of rig edit mode, as we are right now, we can edit the rig without dealing with any strange deformations. It's only the rig we're editing when we mess with these bones right here. So Animate prompted me to enter rig edit mode because I had inadvertently made a change to the mesh. So if I go back out to scene 1, right, whenever you want to intentionally directly go into rig edit mode, when you have the warped asset tool selected, you can always right click on there and you're gonna get the option to edit rig in the right click menu. When you choose that, it brings you into rig edit mode. And there you can edit the rig. So like maybe this bone here, I want to extend over here. I didn't do it quite well enough. I want to pull these handles out to conform to the actual, you know, direction of the leaf and so forth. Rig edit mode is a great way to go through and make sure that your rig is set up exactly as you want it set up. That's pretty good. Now this one's not that great. All right, that rig is looking pretty good. And let's go back out to scene 1. So at this point, I'm gonna fit in window. We've got our rig set up and we've got our background. What we need to do now is to add some motion to this. And yeah, you can tell like my asset got goofed up here mistakenly. There is a way to reset the stuff here. And if you go to warp options with the object selected, there's a little reset button now. This was introduced in Animate 2024. So if I reset that, boom, it goes back to my actual rig. So this is the rig that I create in Rig Edit. So Reverb Mike asks, when will After Effects have a Rig Edit mode? That would be nice. I have no idea. It seems like Adobe's priorities right now are all around generative AI. And that's about it, you know? Anything else kind of gets put on the back burner, unfortunately. We'll see how that evolves over the next few months. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing the generative AI stuff. I think Adobe's approach to it is good, especially in things like Photoshop and Illustrator. Generating vectors and things is really cool. Recoloring's cool. But, you know, there's other things that need attention inside of some of these apps other than just making things AI powered, right? And again, I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing it. I'm not. because I enjoy working with it. But balance is important. Moderation is important. I'll leave it at that. Okay, so we got our hand here, right? Now, what we're gonna do is let's extend both of these layers. If I select both frames at the 2-second mark, frame 60, you just click and drag until they're both highlighted. And then you can, let's just right click on there and choose insert frame. And there's so many different ways of inserting frames and keyframes and things like that now in Animate. It's crazy. Insert frame. You can see there's a full menu right here too, above the timeline to insert frames, blank keyframes, and so on. So what I want to do is, of course, animate this guy. We're going to use, again, the Asset Warp Tool to do that. Now, if nothing's selected with the Asset Warp Tool, right? If we click on this hand, now if I choose one of these pins or any of the bones, right? I can move them and it will warp the underlying bitmap for me. If I click and drag on this square pin, which is our root node, I'm able to move the actual thing, which is really cool too. So in this first frame, I don't want the hand to be visible yet. I want it to be off stage like this. I'm gonna have to zoom out a bit more. There we go. My hand is off stage. That's pretty cool looking though. I like how it's sort of like, it's fun. So the hand's off stage. We want it to move in at some point, and I'm gonna click on this keyframe until it's selected, and then when I hover over it, I get this little kind of box near my cursor that indicates I can click and drag my keyframe out to a certain point, maybe frame 15. Yikes. Oh, there we go. It just needed to catch up. Like I said, warped objects is a scary thing. Yes. So here it is. It's going to start out over on this side, and it's not going to pop into about 15 seconds. And we want it to come in. And as it comes in, we want the leaves to sort of move. And then we want it to hold, and the leaves keep moving. So pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is insert a new keyframe right here, because when you're dealing with Animate and warped objects, the way that you create content with warped objects is that you use what's known as a classic tween. And a classic tween requires that you manually input keyframes where you want changes to occur, right? The keyframes retain the property data value changes, and then the tweens between the keyframes, right? In between, that's where the term comes from. So right now it just kind of like, they're both at the same spot. There's no change in position or anything. But of course, if we just drag this over like that, then there it is. And now we can fit in window again, so we can see that a lot better. Let's go over here. And we just want it to, again, just kind of go in the breeze right here. So if I insert a new keyframe right there, there it is. So at this point, you know, let's go ahead and create that classic tween. I'm gonna select just a set of frames between all three of these keyframes. And then up above here, you can choose to create classic tween from the menu, right? Create classic tween. Or you can just right click on your selection and the menu gives you options to create tweens. We're gonna create a classic tween from there. And you can see what happens, very similar to After Effects. We've heard Mike mention After Effects before. With After Effects, right, there's so much stuff going on. Everything has to render, or else when you hit your key to play back, it won't be at the correct frame rate. It'll be a bit slow because it has to render those frames. If you just don't do anything in After Effects in recent versions, it'll automatically just kind of render those frames for you, which is nice. That's kind of what just happened right there. So you saw there were some little blocks above my timeline here. That was indicating that rendering was going on in the background for this. So let's go ahead and play this back. All right, pretty simple. But this isn't anything that we couldn't do with just a simple movie clip or graphic symbol with a basic, property tween for position. So let's make this much more useful for warped objects. We're going to edit our warped object bones, our pins, and so forth as we do this. So as it comes out here, it kind of makes sense if the hand's going like this to have these leaves kind of like, right? So let's go ahead and do that. We're just going to shift some of these leaves. And be careful, right? So these three are tied together in a certain way. So I'm gonna actually move this one instead. If I move that one, they all go together. And of course we can exaggerate how these guys work, right? You can change the direction of the handles to get the sort of look that you want here. Yeah, this is gonna work out pretty cool. I like this. Ooh, I gotta zoom in a little bit. I can't select that. Let me see. Oh, it's not gonna let me select it. Look at that. Maybe if I move this guy over a little bit. There we go. All right, so you can see it's re-rendering all that stuff. And as it comes in, we can see how it's shifting. Now, we probably want to, shift these a bit more because it looks like they're coming from too much of a standstill there. I'm just gonna roughly move them around a bit so that it looks more like, and this isn't gonna be visible again, right? This portion is not gonna be very visible, but it just looks a little weird right now, as it is. So let's see. There we go. Comes in, whoosh. Look at that. Hey, that looks great. Let's play it back for real. Fit in window. Whoosh. Hey. Now, another thing we can do here is we can actually add an ease to this. Because right now it looks really good and I'm really happy with it. But it's very linear, right? How it comes out. So right here, let's go ahead and select any of these frames in between these two keyframes as part of the tween. And what we'll do is we'll click on this easing effect inside the tweening section. This will allow us to do some sort of an easing algorithm that's different from just a linear ease or classic ease, which is the default here. So if you think about it, it's coming in, probably want to ease out, right? And we'll just do a simple sine ease out. And the difference here when it comes in, if we preview, whoosh, hey, that's pretty good. Whoosh. That's pretty good. I like it. I don't know. I love working with this stuff. Let's do just a quad. Yes, okay. That's better. Whoosh. All right, so when we get there, right? The leaves come in. Really good. And we could, of course, add an ease to this, too. Let's see, if something moves and like, boom. Oh, gosh. We could do an ease in out. Just do quad ease in out for that. Let it render. Oh, that's a little weird. Let's just do a simple ease out. The ease in is not doing it for me. So we'll do ease out quad. And here's the thing, like when you're dealing with motion like this, it's not right. It needs to be less severe. Try sign. The ease out's working for me. Wobbly dirt? What? Whoosh. That's kind of nice. Yeah, that feels realistic, right? And that's the thing, with the easing, you get like a physicality to it, you know? All right, so now that it's there, we just want it to kind of like, just wiggle a little bit. And again, going back to After Effects, right? After Effects has some neat features that allow you to, just introduce mathematical wibbles and wobbles and stuff like that. Extend our frames. And I think what I'll do is just insert a couple keyframes here. Maybe one there, one here. And then for each of these keyframes, we'll just make some adjustments, right? So we'll have this guy kind of go back up a little bit. And you can choose to move the pins, you can move the handles. You've got a lot of different options for this stuff. And probably at this point, I want to be pretty subtle about the movement, you know? And of course, at the finality here, we'll just have things kind of settle in. And of course, this sort of stuff can be messed with quite a bit. Maybe the dirt would wobble. Oh, we could do that, actually. Because here's something that's really interesting. That's a good thing to mention, Reverb Mike. So, when you create a warped object, that particular object, instead of animate, can have multiple armatures that are assigned to the same object. So you're not restricted to only one armature, one rig. You can have multiples. So we could add another one inside the dirt and just have that work independent of everything else. But first, let's assign a classic tween to this. And then we'll go ahead and preview what we've got so far. We'll zoom out a little bit here on the timeline. It's pretty good. So you notice there's a little bit of a, the underlying hand gets kind of distorted a little bit. It kind of moves up when some of this other stuff happens. I mean, that's okay. If we didn't want that to happen, of course, we could shift this down a little so it looks more like the hand is moving more than the entire arm is moving, right? There we go. Let's do it again. Very nice. Okay. So the dirt. Oh boy. Let's go in, I don't know, somewhere around here when it first, it first arrives right here. But let's go right here. It's kind of the midpoint, right? This particular keyframe at the 2-second mark. So if we have our warped asset, our asset warp tool selected, if we go to the tool options up in our properties panel, we can see that we have propagate changes selected. And maybe I don't want bones for the dirt. Maybe I just want to create pins. Pins, are sort of like almost their own sort of multi-rig, because they're each their own little independent thing. Whereas bones, when you create them, right, it creates a branching armature, so it's a little different. Let's go ahead and turn create bones off, make sure propagate changes is on, and then we're gonna go ahead and add a couple of little pins here and here. Hello? I'm not trying to create a flexi bone. You're wrong. Cancel. I'm not creating bones, dude. Sure. I don't know what you want, man. There we go. So there's our two little pins. And these are independent pins. You can also have independent armatures. Yeah, I could branch out bones from these, but I'm just gonna use pins for this dirt. And then just modify them here and there, right? So right here, if I choose this pin, there's a couple different things we can do. There's a handle mode of fixed or open, which is kind of interesting. If I choose fixed, I get the ability to rotate around that pin, right? So we can do some subtle rotation here. Let's go over here and do a bit of rotation the other way. Oh, it broke it. Oh, shit. Hey, Adobe. Like I said, Adobe's putting a lot of money into AI right now. There are some features in some of their products that maybe should get a little of that money instead of AI. Let's undo this. Because I just broke this thing, right? I want to get back to the point where I did not insert those guys. Because that completely destroyed my hand. I swear every time I show animate on one of these streams, it's just like, here's another bug, guys. Okay. All right. So what do you do with this, right? How do you get this out of Animate? A couple different ways. You could always go File, Export, and then you can export as an image sequence. You can export it as a video file, like an MP4 or something like that, an MOV. You can export it as an animated GIF. There's also the quick export feature up here, quick share and publish. So if I choose this, I can choose to publish as a video, as an animated GIF, whatever I might want. I think I'll choose a video here, publish. It's gonna go ahead and make use of course, Adobe Media Encoder to publish this to an H.64 MP4 file. And then I'll be able to use that wherever I like. Man. Yeah, so if I wanted the dirt to wobble, I mean, I could try doing it with bones and see if that doesn't completely destroy it. But another thing I could do is go into Photoshop and actually just like export just the dirt, just like I did the hand and everything. And then, you know, it's not going to affect anything else if I have it just kind of like shake a little bit as it goes through here. Publishing failed. That's awesome, Adobe. 2 fails in a row. That's pretty cool. Don't know why. There's Media Encoder. Maybe it just got impatient with us, right? Nope. Well. Let's do an animated GIF then. Animated GIF is going to be way bigger than an MP4 file, and I have no idea why this is failing. I actually just did a workflow similar to this like a couple weeks ago. Again, for Adobe Press, and it worked out just great. generating video. So let's publish that animated GIF. And Adobe animated GIF, Adobe's animate export of animated GIFs actually does not employ Adobe Media Encoder. So it just uses an internal mechanism inside of Animate to do that. And you can see right here, we've got our GIF file now. And if I preview this, hello, there it is. Animated GIF. Woo, very nice. Okay, so there's that. Let's go ahead and try to export as video/media. So when I do that, 1280 by 720, entire movie, format, custom. No, I want to export, and you can see this taps directly into Adobe Media Encoder here. These are all the presets from there. I want, no, not MPEG 4, H.264. Where are you, guy? Is my media encoder broken? Why don't I have just a basic H.264? You're killing me, Adobe. Forget it. This is how it's supposed to work. It's not working. It's not my fault. Apologies. There we go. I think this is a good time to stop the stream. Yes. At least I got an animated GIF out of it, right? Reverb Mike says you could pull the hand back at the end to make it a loop. That's a good idea. I have office hours in 6 minutes. So I need to end the stream, but that is a good idea. I like that idea. Yeah, then you can make it a looping GIF. Work out really well. And it'd be pretty easy to do because you could just copy these keyframes here. So if I like copy my frame right here. Joseph, don't do it. You got other things you're doing. Don't do it. And then paste frames, right? And then if we create a classic tween, and of course it's gonna need to extend the frames of this guy here. Actually, let's extend frames to, I don't know, 6 seconds. Yeah, there's time to do this, right? I am out of time, but I'm doing it anyway because it's a good idea. Reverb mic. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and test movie with the test movie button here. Comes out and zip. Hey, look at that. So what we probably want to do is when it pulls it back, make those fronds kind of pull the other way, right? For the momentum. But, you know, change the ease on it too. Have it ease out, something like that, when it pulls back. So it starts off really fast. But yeah, this was fun. It's fun to add movement to still objects. And I do wish that there weren't so many bugs inside of this workflow, though. It's a great workflow, but hopefully improvements in the next year, right? All right. Now I really do have to leave. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks Reverb Mike, and somebody else commented, Danilo. And gosh, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. My name is difficult for people, so I try to be aware of that sort of thing. Labrec gets butchered quite a bit. All right. Thanks everyone. Later.